Okay, hello. Welcome back to the Melanie Show, or whatever we're calling it, the Mellor's channel, where I try desperately to voice train so I can pass as a female. What are we talking about tonight? I was thinking this guy here, it's not a Game Boy, which you might think from the onset. It's actually a modern device. It was made like a few years ago, and it's made for playing retro games, not just Game Boy games. So I've got some SNES games on here, Game Boy, of course, Game Boy Color, something else, I think. My memory is failing me because I'm not using this guy as much as I thought I would be, which is unfortunate. Luckily, it was relatively cheap. It was 3,000 pesos. I'm not sure how much that is in, whatever currency you use, but it was fairly cheap, and it's a cute little fidgety thing, so I don't mind dropping that much for it. It ties a little bit into what I was talking about last video with how I've been trying to be more intentional with how I use technology, and part of that is the concept of decentralizing your smartphone. What does that mean? That means taking each of the key functions of your smartphone and outsourcing that into a separate device. So, for example, reading. Some people like to read on their phones. I outsource that to my Kindle. Some people like to game on their phones. I try to outsource that to this console here. It's an Anbernic, is what it's called, an Anbernic RG35XX or something like that. you can find it based on that. But unfortunately, oh yeah, if you want to hear the clicks, there's some clicks there. Unfortunately, my kind of journey into digital minimalism and just not using my phone so much continues to fail me. I always end up putting Reddit back on that thing and putting YouTube back on that thing, and it's unfortunate because I would say one of the things I want to do certainly with my life is not have to be so fucking content brain, which is funny for considering I'm technically a content creator now. But like, just the endless consumption of content is probably not a good thing. Like, I mean, there's obviously studies about how it's bad to never be bored and have your brain constantly be stimulated. It's just not healthy, and I'm trying to be healthy, so this just makes sense for me to try and do, but I don't know, I always fail. Yeah. It so for I mean, the Kindle though has been working spectacularly. I use that every day, because really I like reading. Like, that's something that's stuck with me from the beginning. I have always liked gaming, but I have never really actually played games that are typically played in this form factor, because I grew up with most notably Half-Life. Well, now you're gonna kill me if I say that, because I didn't necessarily exactly grow up with Half-Life, because I don't think I was born when Half-Life 1 came out in 1997, I think. I was born in 99, but the first video game I ever remember playing was Half-Life and Half-Life 2. In fact, the first video game release I remember remembering is the release of the orange box of Half-Life 2 Episode 2, TF2, and Portal in 2007. And it's funny, despite being only 7 years old, no, actually 6 years old. No, wait, yeah, 7 years old at the release of the orange box, I was enough of a gamer to be really excited for it. It is curious, isn't it? I do wonder what growing up on video games as my main form of entertainment has done to my brain. I do think in some respect it's kind of led to me trying very hard to gamify life, and some people really get into this gamifying life, and that's kind of what to-do lists are, and habit trackers and all that. I just kind of find that that mindset of gamifying everything, which I'm carrying over from how many goddamn video games I played as a child. It doesn't feel as sustainable as just being like a regular disciplined person. Yeah, I mean, it's just that as hard as you try, like doing like your laundry is never gonna be as stimulating as like taking down a Strider in Half-Life 2, like no matter how hard you try. So it does feel more like you have to shift your mindset out of gamification and less on the results. That's kind of the thing about video games is you become so result oriented. It's like, what's the most efficient way to affect this? Like, what's the most efficient way for me to kill this bad guy, or for me to advance to this level? And you're constantly optimizing to get the best possible result. That's not really a mentality that works out well in the real world. In the real world, what generally works, if you kind of listen to what these super successful people say, is not focusing so much on the end goal and just focusing on the here and now, and like seeing what you can do with what you've got, and not being too afraid to like experiment and be weird using what you've got. And I don't know, maybe there are video games that cultivate that mentality more than the ones that I grew up with. Say, for example, Minecraft. Maybe if I grew up with Minecraft, which I kind of did in fairness, I would have turned out better. Because specifically the lack of a goal, especially in early Minecraft, which is when I was first introduced into it, does kind of invite you to make your own goals and to focus on what you have and seeing what you can build out of what you have, which, as I've said, kind of is low-key how you ought to live your life if you don't want to be like constantly just like depressed and stressed all the time. Yeah, maybe Gen Alpha, who's kind of more growing up in Minecraft. Well, no, here's the thing though. New Minecraft is a different beast from old Minecraft, like totally. And for a variety of reasons, but I am talking specifically about there being an end to Minecraft now, and the mentality I was talking about with games like Half-Life, where you're just trying to optimize the best route and kill enemies as well as you can, as quickly and as you can without dying, that carries over kind of in the current Minecraft. If you look at the speedrun community, it's all about optimization. Early Minecraft, you couldn't really speedrun anything because there was nothing to speedrun to. Like, the speedrun would be like make the nicest castle. Like, yeah, it's possible I would have turned out better if I grew up on Minecraft more. Again, I kind of did, but it was not as much of a fixture in my life as shooters were. I'm thinking of like Team Fortress 2, as we're talking about the orange box. Certainly was, that's like my first main online game, come to think of it. And it's where I got all my shooting skills from, which I still have. And I can pick up any FPS and like do quite well in it because of how well I've developed my aim over the 10 years that I consistently played TF2. Probably not 10, like came out in 2000. No, actually maybe 10. I think probably 10, yeah. It's just an interesting thought, like how different video games cultivate different mentalities on you, the ones that you grew up with. I mean, I did also grow up with Fallout 3 New Vegas were quite prominent in my brain, and I suspect actually that that's probably the source of why I like role playing. Well, I'm into TTRPGs like D&D and so on, and I like world building, and I like making characters and OCs. Probably stems from that, come to think of it. I also even played KOTOR 2, like without playing KOTOR 1, by the way. I discovered KOTOR 1 in like 2018 or something, but I played KOTOR 2 when I was a wee child, and despite being a wee child who could not really grasp much of the philosophy that Kotor 2, specifically Kreia, was talking about. I still found it compelling in like my own way. And arguably it's where my love for like writing came from and like stories. Well, that's because I grew up with books more so. It's just funny, like way not just video games, but everything in general that you grow up with, how much that shapes you even now. Like it determines your interest and how you look at the world. I've thought idly on like imagine having like a child and like being one of those parents who gets them to fucking start on chess at a very early age, and then like they just turn into like a grandmaster or something. It feels almost like a curse to do that, like I wouldn't. For one, I have no passion for chess except casually. Like, we all had that chess like phase during COVID, but I would not do that to my child because I feel like if you wean your child, as it were, on chess, you're kind of only leaving one avenue for them to pursue in the future. I don't really want to raise the next Magnus Carlsen or the next Levi Rossman. Yeah, man. Okay, maybe these videos will be about 10 minutes long because that's kind of how long the last one was, so probably a good time to send off here. And my kind of end tagline, which I thought about extensively, trust me, is keep on smiling, sailor boys. Yeah, keep on smiling, sailor boys.